All right, so let's see if we can just walk through this madness a little bit. So what we're talking about here is the reproductive cycle of the human female, okay? So we're starting in the hypothalamus of the brain, which we know is in this area here, and it's attached to the pituitary gland, which we have the anterior and we have the posterior. And we're talking about the anterior pituitary here, which is that front stage, which is the Flute Lute Theater Company, which has all of, acts professionally to get to Milan, all right? There's two hormones involved here. There's the follicular stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone, okay, which are they stimulate the ovaries and the testes. Real quick, in males, the follicular stimulating hormone is involved with Sertoli cells and inhibin. Luteinizing hormone, you can think of L, also starts with L, like Leydig cells. Men dig with their testosterone, whatever. And that's going to be the Leydig cells. So that's kind of what's happening, the hormonal controls of the testes. So it's a lot simpler. But we go down here in the female, here's kind of what's happening. All right. So the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary via this GnRH, which is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, stimulates the FSH and the LH, okay? All right, so what happens is both of those things, like we said, they stimulate the ovaries and the testes. It stimulates the follicle to grow into an oocyte. I think it's called the secondary oocyte, okay? So we can see that is happening. That's happening here. They're going to be like, hey, little follicle, we want you to grow up. And you have this fluid-filled sac in here, and you have the oocyte, which is this little thing here, okay? So the FSH and the LH are going to stimulate that to grow. This is called the follicular phase because the follicle's growing, okay? But this maturing follicle is then going to start to secrete estradiol. So we see this ES. It's going to secrete estradiol, which is why I have all these ESs here, which obviously causes estradiol to rise, okay? Now, the estradiol rising also is going to cause a surge in LH, which is the luteinizing hormone. Remember up here? That surge is what's ultimately going to trigger ovulation, which, here's our secondary oocyte. Whoops. Here's our secondary oocyte here, which is going to then rupture and ovulate. That's the pain that happens in menstruation. All right, well, in the ovarian cycle, more specifically. So that comes out, and then what happens is our follicle becomes the corpus luteum, which is still going to secrete estradiol, but it's also going to secrete progesterone. Now, the combination of those is actually inhibitory towards the hypothalamus, which we can see right here. So that's kind of this feedback that we get so that this isn't like a constant process, okay? So estradiol levels had dipped a little bit, but now they're rising slowly here. Progesterone is spiking pretty high. The combination of these is what is going to thicken the endometrium in the secretory phase, which we have down here, okay? So that's where we get that MPS, menstrual proliferative secretory. So extremely quick and dirty. Hopefully that gets me by, but that's what's kind of happening here.